That's the first thing you're going to feel for most people, right? So let's just acknowledge that it takes effort and work to transform shame into a feeling of empowerment, because we can't avoid the circumstances that this person was describing in her question, right? Like, this is going to happen like multiple times, going to keep happening. We can't stop this from happening, but what we can do is stop ourselves from taking the responsibility and feeling shame. Or then if we do feel the shame, what we can do is transform that shame into self-worth and empowerment. Every negative usually has an opportunity to create a positive. We just have to want to do that. And usually it starts with really small things. Hello and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. Brittany and I are back. We are back with our second episode of a recurring series that we have now decided to call Q and Alana. It's our Q&A series, in case that wasn't obvious, but welcome to our second episode. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Alana. I'm excited.
I know. Same. I am excited. I mean, these are the episodes where, we get to really get granular and slow things down and really dig into some questions that I think people sometimes think they're the only ones that think these things. And I think sometimes the questions can be really simple and there are, simple answers, but just hearing the fact that we pull questions that a lot of people ask. So you could always sit there when you're listening and know that you're not alone, and just excited to dig in today.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited to get into these questions. And audience, just so you know, this series only works if you're a part of it. And if you have questions about eating, hunger, cravings, or your relationship with food, we want to hear it in your own words. You can leave us a short voice note at speakpipe.com/emotional eating unwrapped. That's speakpipe.com/emotional eating unwrapped. That's where we pull some of these questions from. And we are going to include more in the next one. So please send in your questions if you have them.
Amazing. Lovely. Thanks, Brittany. Thank you so much. And then we're going to jump in a second. But before we jump in, I want to introduce myself to you. If you are new to me, my name is Alana Kessler. I'm a registered dietitian, functional dietitian. I've been in this health, this wellness space, this industry, quote unquote, for 20 plus years. I've done everything under the sun in this industry, but my passion is helping people find love with their body, lose weight if that's what's important to you, which for many it is, and that is okay, reconnect with themselves, overcome any kind of emotional or addictive behaviors and patterns with food, and just live your best life, because that is what you have been put on the earth to do. So if you are new here, you've been here before, welcome and welcome back. And with that, we will dive right in today. Brittany, hit me with the questions.
So our first question has really hit me. It really hit me because I feel this for myself a lot too. So this one got to me. So I picked it for our first question. Some days I don't feel hungry at all, and other days I feel like I could eat nonstop. I keep wondering what's wrong with me because it feels so inconsistent.
First of all, you said it hit you hard. I feel like I definitely feel this way myself. First of all, I just want to normalize that. That's a very normal human thing is to have this type of inconsistency, unpredictability with hunger. So I think the first thing that I would say is to get comfortable with this being a normal thing, not something that's abnormal. I think we're so quick to make things wrong with what's going on in our bodies. And one of the biggest things that I have learned about just healing and coming to terms with my own body and relationship with my body is to really learn how to normalize these types of occurrences and experiences with hunger. So that's the first thing. The second thing is hunger is influenced by a lot of different things. So it really is important that you start to take a look at some of the obvious and even non-obvious triggers that might be impacting your hunger environmentally, circadian rhythmly, which is like your sleep cycle, and just start to notice what about your lifestyle is impacting your energy, right? Because remember, we feel hungry when our body thinks our body needs energy, whether or not it's obvious to us or not. And a lot of times, our mental energy takes a lot of energy from our system, and our body will think that we need food. And sometimes we might not. The other thing is hormonally, right? Wherever we are in our hormone life cycle, that impacts hunger as well. So, a lot of these things that are physiological are impacting your hunger that have nothing to do with you or your character or your discipline. And so I think just beginning to zoom out and creating that narrative and that relationship, even though it might be uncomfortable, to experience this, creating this distance between this meaning something about you and, and just realizing that it's not about you. It's not about your failure or your success in that sense.
Yeah. I think we tend to put a lot, I mean, like you said, a blame on ourselves when we're like, oh, why am I going back after a snack after dinner? And it's like, maybe it's because you did a really hard hit workout at the beginning of the day that day, and you just need a little bit extra. Or maybe you worked through lunch at work, and you just needed that like extra, because I have that happen a lot. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that it's not, the inconsistencies aren't like a failure on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important also to recognize that feeling hungry doesn't necessarily mean you have to eat. You
Mhm.
also can discern. I think it's really important that, that's a different skill too. It's like being able to take a look at your day, right? So to your point, maybe you did have a hit workout, maybe you did um, have an intense, you spent 3 hours in front of a computer hashing out a paper or hashing out something for work. That takes a lot of energy. I know for me, even if I'm sitting stationary at my desk, but I'm sitting there like, creating a new program or something, and I'm sitting there writing the curriculum or something like that, 3 hours, I'm sitting there, I'm starving when I get up, right? Because
Yeah.
like I said, mental energy takes time, but I also doesn't mean I have to go eat, right? Doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I'm gonna not eat if I'm actually physiologically hungry, but I'm gonna take a
Yeah.
look at what my day was like.
Mhm.
And if I can say, like, yeah, I did eat a lot of I did nourish myself today. I might not eat, right? I might just be like, oh, this isn't physical hunger, it's just, that emotional hunger. So learning the
Mm.
difference within yourself um, is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something I definitely could see, like how people could confuse
Hmm.
that. And you talk a lot about that on these episodes, like how to discern the
Hmm.
difference, and you know being in tune with your body, listening to those messages. It's always
Exactly.
talking to us. Yeah.
Exactly. And just because we get a message doesn't mean we have to act on the message. And that's also part of the skill of creating a relationship with, your body and food that combines both um, self-worth and also hitting your goal, being able to achieve your goals, which I think is really
Yeah.
important. And so realizing, discernment is not restriction. There's no all or nothing, and just training your nervous system and your mindset to accept that.
All right, let's move on to question number 2. So, someone wrote in, when I'm feeling really low, depression hits, I forget to eat. Then later, it feels like my appetite sometimes comes back all at once. Is that emotional eating, or is it something else?
That's such a good question. And it's so nuanced because you're describing an emotion in the depression, right? Like it definitely, I'm not saying that depression is an emotion like sadness, but depression houses different flavors of emotion. So when one is feeling depressed, you know you're depressed because there's a flavor of an emotion that's being lived in your body, whether that's sadness, grief, fatigue. Um, and so, and so if, I mean, if you're feeling depressed and you don't eat and later you're hungry, I personally, I don't think that's emotional eating. I think it's just riding the wave of how you feel. I think what you want to focus on is your your self leadership with your decisions about eating once you decide that you're going to eat later. The fact that you're hungry and you feel very hungry later and you want to eat, that's not emotional eating. However, if you say to yourself, oh, this is a permission for me to just like eat whatever I want and stuff myself and not eat with intention, attention, and responsibility, then I would say that maybe there's more emotional eating in that. So it's more about the behavior it's more about the behavior that you're exhibiting towards your eating than the context of when you're eating that will define the emotional eating part of it.
All right. So the third question, I have ADHD and eating is very out of sight, out of mind for me. I'll realize late in the afternoon that I haven't eaten all day. What's going on there for them?
Yeah. Yeah, so I just want to disclaim that I am not a medical professional. I don't, I mean, I am a nutritionist. Obviously, I have medicine. I'm a dietitian. So I have medical training in some areas, but I'm not 100% well-versed ADHD. So I do feel like this is a very nuanced topic. What I do know is paying attention, and I don't think this is controversial. I think paying attention is something that's challenging um, paying attention and kind of maybe, through lines of things can be challenging for people with ADHD. I definitely feel like I have a flavor of that. I definitely have a like neurodivergent brain. I have 75,000 tabs open on my computer at all times. I, start one thing and then I find myself going on to the next. So I totally understand that. I also am somebody who I could focus on one thing for 5 hours and that's the only thing that I could do. So I do understand. But my answer will definitely, to this point, I'm only going to speak for what I think. And so it makes a lot of sense when your brain is like that to have, and when it's like that and it applies to so many other things in your life, for it also to apply to food, right? So the question is what's going on with that? I think it's just how your brain is wired. And it's probably, again, like I said, how you relate to other things. If it's starting to impact your energy, if you notice that it's starting to create negativity and things, and your quality of life feels like it's going down because you're not able to remember to eat, or your eating becomes super inconsistent, that it's impacting your performance, things, at work or whatever it is, or just in life and in general, you find your energy levels are just high and then low, and it's just really inconsistent because of the eating, you've recognized that that's the case, then I think it's important that you set up things in your life like timers or certain things to remind you to eat, right? And to remind you to stick to the routine and then make that a priority for you. At the end of the day, we could have all of the guardrails in place, but if we don't prioritize them and we still kind of ignore them, it's not going to work for us. So it's twofold. It's having things in place to support your consistency with eating. And then it's also making sure that you've created the mindset and the commitment within yourself to prioritize that. Yeah. I mean, anything else? I mean, I know you also have a neurodivergent brain too.
Yes, well,
Missing?
the thing that resonated with me too is the focusing on one thing for 5 hours, and not moving or getting up. And I definitely have that, but I do try to practice like what you're saying about the setting timers, and it really is just for me prioritizing myself and just that remembering that kind of that fill your cup thing, like
Mhm.
that's what it is for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that, it's being willing to work in collaboration with our specialness, not, and learn and realizing that it's not something that makes things worse for us, but it can be something that we have to work with. So I think it's learning to be in partnership with yourself also is really important. And, setting yourself up to win, just like in relationships with other people, right? I talk about this all the time with, women I work with, especially once we get more deeper into lifestyle stuff. And I would work with women on their relationships with people and dating, actually, believe it or not. And
Yeah.
I'm always like saying to them, you know, you want to set up partners to win. So how can we do that? And you want to think of yourself as a relationship with yourself, as a partnership with yourself. So
Yes.
how can you set yourself up to win? And that's individual, right? The way you set up an ex partner to win might not be the same way that you set up your current partner to win. So you have to think of yourself that way too.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I don't think we hear enough people um, talk about that relationship that you have with yourself. It is an extremely important relationship, and then I find as women that is one that we neglect quite often, and we take on other things first. But that's just my personal experience,
I think,
and but yeah,
no, I think you're right. And I also think that more women more than men, and I think this is 100% like just a subconscious cultural thing. We
yeah,
will deprioritize ourselves and then be more victim mindset, and take things that are maybe create some hardships, and will go into a more victim set element, mindset, rather than a partnership with ourselves mindset, like an
yeah,
opportunity mindset to,
yeah.
um, and go into that place, right? It's sort of like, how can I, this is something that's negative that's happening to me. How can I survive this, rather
Mhm.
than how can I create a scenario where I thrive with this, because I create a partnership with myself around this and with this. All right, so I want to stop for 1 second and just remind you that if you're listening to this episode, you're thinking like, wow, this is so me. This explains a lot. I want to go a little bit deeper into understanding my own patterns with eating, maybe why I am not losing weight, or why I, have these types of behaviors and patterns with eating. I just want to guide you and point you to a short quiz that I have on the website that helps connect the dots for you. And you can find that in the show notes, or you can find it anytime on the homepage at www.bewellbyak.com.
You've built a good life. From the outside, it looks like you have it all together. You eat clean, you work hard, you take care of everyone. But there's this one area that still feels impossible to master, and that is food. You can eat perfectly all day and still end up in the kitchen at night wondering why you keep doing this. You promise yourself you'll start fresh tomorrow, and I know you mean it every single time. But the cycle, it always finds its way back, especially when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, or when you're just tired of being the one that's holding it all together. And I get it because I lived that way for years. And what I learned is this: the problem, it was never about food. It was the pressure underneath it, the perfectionism, the self doubt, the part of me that never felt safe and secure to just be me. And that's why I created the sober eating sequence. It's a proven 3-phase method that rewires the emotional patterns and the belief systems driving overeating so you can relax, trust yourself around food, and release weight completely naturally, without force and without obsession. Because when your body feels secure, it lets go. The cravings quiet, the self-punishment, it softens, and food, it stops being the thing that you have to fix. This is not another plan. This isn't another rule book. It's a revolutionary transformation for your nervous system, for your body, and for your identity. So join the sober eating movement today.
All right, moving into question number 4. Okay, this one is really interesting to me, so I'm excited to hear your take on this. I was recently diagnosed with PCOS, and now I'm questioning a lot of things about my hunger and cravings. How much of this is my body, and then how much of this is me not managing my food well?
Okay, so without knowing your specific eating routine and eating habits, I'm going to answer the first part. How much is this the PCOS? And I'm going to say that it could be a part of it. It could even be a big part of it. PCOS inherently impacts insulin, right? Impacts insulin and your ability to to metabolize insulin correctly, for it to be used. Sometimes, there is insulin resistance that comes from PCOS, right? And can create an imbalance in the hunger and fullness cues, right? All of these hormones are related. Insulin, estrogen, ghrelin, and all these different hormones that, not to get too dorky sciencey with you, but they're all intricately connected. And when they work together well, there's this nice ebb and flow of hunger and fullness, hunger and satisfaction, hunger and fullness. PCOS inherently disrupts that. So definitely, I would say that it could be a factor. And then, knowing a little bit more, if you were working with someone, or if you're interested in working with me, or you're interested in, going through the sober eating sequence and seeing how I talk about, and the guidelines I give around eating, and, very flexible guidelines. And you want to compare your eating habits and style to that. I think that, that would give you a lot of information, a lot of reference points, a lot of guidance. But without seeing how you eat is difficult for me to answer that piece of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's validating though for women with PCOS recently diagnosed, or maybe, having this feeling of it's not, I think it goes back to kind of the first question we were talking about, where it's not always about like you necessarily, like it's not a failure, but this could be something that you're experiencing and worth looking into investigating, with a medical professional, your program. So I think that gives a lot of validation to those women.
Absolutely. And I do. I mean, PCOS and weight gain and difficulty managing weight, kind of, a feeling like food and hunger and things are just wacky, is a very real and very physiologically validated thing. Like it happens with most people. You might notice that when you do have PCOS, it feels like it's easy to gain weight around the middle. That is definitely a factor, as far as what I was talking about before with the insulin resistance and how the body stores fat much easier when there is insulin resistance. So these are definitely real and valid experiences and truths.
All right. So the final question, my appetite changes with my mood, my stress, and my hormones. And I feel a lot of shame around that. How do I stop blaming myself?
Yeah. Oof. That's such a, doesn't that question hit you so hard? Because I feel like, that is the heaviest part, right? It's like, it's like the human experience. And I think this is going to sound very, this might sound really hippy dippy or like super like out there, but it really is just realizing that the human experience is just a collection of things that, you know, are uncomfortable, comfortable, shifts, changes. And so much of it has nothing to do with us as like and our character and our worthiness. And the word shame means that when you feel shame about something, it means that you're taking on that responsibility of the outcome of what you're feeling. And you know, the question in and of itself said that you've defined these external reasons because of your humanness, why you're feeling this way. And so my advice would be to remember that you are not responsible for these external things, though you are experiencing them and they might feel like they're happening to you and therefore you are responsible, but they're just happening. And because you're a human in this experience and in this world, you're going to absorb them and you're going to feel them, but it doesn't mean you're responsible for them. So when you separate responsibility from something that's happening with you and to you, and because you are in collaboration with the world, I hope that it gives you a little bit of space to let go of some of that responsibility that's causing the shame, because the shame is only going to be felt when you feel responsible. Now you can't avoid the discomfort that you're feeling, or you can't, but what you can do is you do have control over how you choose to act from this uncomfortable place, right? So when something uncomfortable happens, a lot of times humans go two ways. They go the shame way, where we take responsibility for it, or we go the rebellious sabotage way, where then we do things, you know, either mindlessly or because we don't bring enough mindfulness to it, that sabotage us and you know, and harm us and kind of you know, and kind of do the opposite, take us to the opposite of where we actually want to be and feel, right? And so the way that you can not have shame is by not taking responsibility for this. And then the way that you can not have shame, but then transform that shame into self-worth, is by then creating habits and rhythms and routines that support you to reach how you want to feel and how you want to look.
Would you say it can be like little things and big things? You know, both can be true.
Yeah, I mean, it can be like little things, I think, are more important than big things when it comes to creating a foundation of self-worth and moving from shame to feeling empowered, right? Like it's normally just little commitments that we keep to ourselves that can make us feel better. So once you define those things for yourself, it's important that you commit to those things and you make those habits, right? On some level, shame is easier, right? It's sometimes easier to just like feel bad and like feel shame and kind of go there, because and it's easier, and it's also the lower hanging fruit, because when things are uncomfortable and things we're feeling in a bad place because of external things, the shame is just easier to access. Right? It's an easier access thing, but it's not the most elevated and evolved way we want to be. But getting to that place means you need to transform the shame. That's the first thing you're going to feel for most people, right? So let's just acknowledge that, you know, it takes effort and work to transform shame into a feeling of empowerment, because we can't avoid the circumstances that this person was describing in her question, right? Like this is going to happen like multiple times, going to keep happening. We can't stop this from happening, but what we can do is, stop ourselves from taking the responsibility and feeling shame. Or then if we do feel the shame, what we can do is transform that shame into, self-worth and empowerment. So, every negative usually has an opportunity to create a positive. We just have to want to do that. And and usually it starts with really small things that you commit to.
I think that's really great. I think that's such good advice. Like, I don't know what it is about for me, that idea of like if maybe there's something to do with my personality or, the way I move through life, but I'm a very black and white kind of so it's like an all or nothing for me, but it's something that I'm working on. I work through every day to remind myself to do the small things. But I to hear it from you, and then speaking to that of like all of those small things really add up, and just those commitments that we make to ourselves, and not losing sight of that is really important, and how that can make great change. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd be so surprised at like how small of a thing it will change your mood and will change your feeling about yourself. You'd be so surprised. Like we think it has to be this huge overarching, like, oh, okay, I must commit to 30 days now, this whole thing. A lot of times it's literally me just going and getting gas in my car, like getting up, getting gas in my car, watering my plants, making sure my bed's made, folding the clothes that I have thrown on the floor and, or let pile up on my bench, right? Doing those 4 things, I all of a sudden feel productive. I all of a sudden feel good, right? And I also let myself receive those things as being enough, right? I'm not like, oh, I just did these stupid little rituals, but I haven't done the big thing that really is going to transform my attitude towards myself. No, I let myself know that these things, I want to set myself up to win, right? Like to before, like I choose to make these things bigger things to transform my behavior. I'm looking for the opportunity to move from a feeling of shame or like, self just negativity to positivity. I want that to happen. So I think that that's really important too. You need to want to move out of the shame feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. Well,
Yeah.
that gave me a lot of clarity, and I hope that the people listening also, we answer your questions and you got the answers you needed. And there's so many resources that Alana offers for like all of these types of questions, concerns, comments. And so we just really hope that you'll dig a little bit deeper into some of those resources, listen to other episodes. I know you have episodes on when, like the dopamine loop. That one has a lot of really good information. I'll put that link in the show notes to that episode, and just like the small things to take care of yourself. But I hope this episode really helped. And what really stood out to me hearing some of these questions when we were putting these together is how much pressure people are carrying to eat normally, even when their bodies are dealing with a lot behind the scenes. So it makes sense that a lot of this would feel confusing for people, and your body is juggling more than one thing on any given day. But hearing, how your answers came together made a lot of sense for me. And if you want your question featured on another Q and Alana episode, you can leave us a voice note at speakpipe.com /emotional eating unwrapped. That's speakpipe.com /emotional eating unwrapped. And that's where we're going to pull all of our questions from for our next episodes.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear those. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Like we always say in every episode, we love when new people get to hear our episodes. And what helps that is your participation, your 5-star reviews, your reviews on Apple, where you like write how much you love the podcast. It just helps so much get our podcast up there so that people can hear that. So thank you so much. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We're growing there, which we're so excited. Yay. And that's it. So until next time, I'm Alana and Brittany. Thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. See you next time.